Birmingham City training ground, and we're joined by the manager whose team currently sit 5th in the Sky Bet Championship, Gary Rowett. Gary, thanks for letting us be here and join you. And also, we're joined by none other than,
don't forget me,
Sky Sports and Sky Bet EFL pundit Ian Holloway. So we've had a lot of questions already, all sorts of questions coming in. We've had one coming from the Blues Collective about the new owners, Gary. Have you met the new owners? Have you spoken to them? And what have you chatted about?
Yeah, I met them a couple of weeks ago. Just really tried to get a feel for, or they tried to get a feel really for what we do day to day on the training ground and the type of training, because of course, you know, they're not actively involved or they haven't been involved with a football team before. So I think there'll be an element of them learning how we work and getting an understanding of that. And also really trying to gauge, I think for me it was almost like to try and gauge what their intentions are with a club. And to feel that, you know, are we going to get supported moving forward? And it felt very much as though they wanted continuity. And I know a lot of new owners come in and it's almost like, you know, they want to be the front men, and of course that's their prerogative, but, you know, they almost want to be really, really visible early on and show everyone that they're spending money and show everyone that we're going to have a real go. And it felt this group wanted to progress nicely behind the scenes, support the people that were in place and continue the progress perhaps a little more steadily. Which I think is good news. I think that's, you know, that's the best way to do it.
But you've had a really good relationship with I can't remember his name.
Panos.
Panos, yeah, and you and Panos have really done ever so well together, and he's staying, isn't he? So that's not going to change.
Yeah, no, he's staying. I think he's been the link between them coming in, and I think he's been very, very active in helping them to take over. And that's been important for me because, like you say, sometimes, you know, we're going well, we've got continuity, we all trust each other, we know how each other work. Then suddenly if you've got 2 or 3 more people that are in charge of you, and you don't know how that relationship's going to work, and you don't know whether you're going to still have that same sort of synergy in the way you do things. So I think that's been one crucial thing for me personally, is that, you know, Panos stays in the role that he's in, and we can make those good decisions. And of course now hopefully we'll have a little bit more backing to push the boundaries a little bit more in terms of trying to keep improving.
Please get your questions in to Gary and Ian, of course, and we'll do our best to answer them for you. The new owner's been quoted as saying he's looking to give you £12 million to spend in January.
Oh, that's all right. Can I keep some of it? give me 11. And we'll only need $1 million in this squad.
So I mean, it's what was written in the press. He's been given £12 million for 8 to 10 new players, approximately. Now, is £12 million enough when Championship clubs are going out and spending £15 million on one?
Well, I think the thing is, yeah. I mean, I'm not. Again, I'd have to. For me, it would have to be, you know, do we get them over a period of time? How's that split into the next few windows? Because again, you know, I try to look ahead of a game rather than think we've got one window, let's spend it all. You know, I spoke to the club previously when we got some of the Damari Gray money. I said, listen, you know, he's come through the academy, put something back into the academy. Went and spent £400,000 on a dome, putting a new 4G in and improving it. For me, that's what it should be done. We've tried to improve the structure as well as the playing staff. So, listen, I won't be complaining if I've got £12 million to spend on players or player. Why don't we just buy one? But so, you know, that's what we need, something going forward that we can maybe, if we feel we need to, then we can go and get something different to what we got. But I think the current group we have, there's still plenty of potential in there also.
But from my point of view, Gaz, it really helps you because you'll be able to keep proving to the lads that we're moving forward. We are getting better.
Yeah, and I think that's important, isn't it? I think when the players, when they've been at a club where perhaps, you know, money's been a little bit tight and you've had to keep working hard. And some of these players now have really proved themselves in the Championship over a 2-year period. So I think, like you say, it's important that they see progression, not only for themselves, but for other people to strengthen. And I don't think players complain about that, do they? You know, if you bring in a goal scorer who's going to win you games of football, as a defender, I never minded if that goal scorer was on a little bit more money than me, and you know, we paid a decent transfer fee because it was about the team and it was about us winning games of football. And like you say, you know, hopefully that will give us a competitive advantage, certainly, to keep.
I think that the secret is a little bit more money, not a lot more money. You know, some clubs, you know, maybe Derby. If you look at Derby, sometimes some of the signings they've made, are they comparable to where they were before? So sometimes you can get that slightly wrong. I'm not saying Derby have, but my experience of when I was at Blackpool, you've got to be really careful that everybody, you're trying to look after everybody, and we're all on the up.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think that disparity in wages is an issue, isn't it? And whatever people say, that is an issue. You know, and players will see that, won't they? Someone comes in on 4 times the money, and they've worked their socks off for 2 years, and that's probably not fair, is it? So, I think again that's something I'm conscious of, and you want to kind of reward and move the others forward along with us keeping to try and be competitive.
see, I think what people need to realise at home is that a lot of the manager's issues will be, can I stretch the budget of what I can pay per week sometimes, not just to one, but to quite a few who deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get offers and you turn them down for somebody, can we give him a new deal? Because you're getting better all the time then, you're actually improving, and that's where it goes. Hopefully now might get a chance to do that.
Absolutely.
Also on that theme, are there any particular areas that you're looking to strengthen in, or is it more a case of getting if the right person becomes available and they're the right fit for the club and the culture that you've developed here, you go for them?
Yeah, I think I mean, in terms of our recruitment strategy, we know we like a certain type of a character. For me, is the first thing. I'm starting to learn more and more that I think also an understanding of the Championship. You know, whether they've played in the Championship, whether they've played in English football, or whether they at least understand that mentality is also important, because it's a really unique league. You know, there's players that can be unbelievable players in Europe, come to the Championship, and it's almost like, you know, what is this? It's just so different, and I think that's really important. We'll pinpoint certain areas. I don't think it would be fair for me to sort of name which positions we'd like to strengthen, because of course then if you're one of those players you think, bloody great, I've been working my balls off here, so I probably won't go quite that far, but I think you always have an eye on things, and I think for me it will be in January. I'm hoping that we're in a position where actually less change and maybe more specific signings to help us in certain areas, or help us with things we're not doing. So if we're conceding goals, or if we're not scoring goals, or whatever that is, you know, then that will help us. But certainly this time round, as opposed to last January, you know, those players will have to be fit right into this group, and it's going to be a harder group to strengthen because we've got some good players.
But when you haven't got the budget that the rest of the Championship has, then you have to do it on a shoestring. In other words, you've only maybe had one player and then someone else who covers 2 positions. Gaz might now have the opportunity to actually bring a proper cover to push, and then it's competition. Whoever gets that position, I don't really care. And then you can deal with the suspensions, the injuries that hit you in this mammoth marathon that it is the Championship, because of the amount of games you've got.
I think you also have to be mindful as well, is that I think a lot of teams' problems are caused by sometimes having too many options and too many players. And there's some real key stats in the Championship. You know, often the teams that use the least players and have the most continuity are the ones at the top of the league. You know, you look at the likes of Burnley last season, very rarely changed the side, had strength in depth, but still didn't feel the need to change. You look at some of the other teams, it was lose a game, change 4, you know, draw a game, change 4, win a game, still have to change 2 because you've got 3 or 4 kicking their heels on the side, big money signings. So I think the balance is really, really important as well.
You currently sit 5th in the table and going very well. There's a real buzz around the club. We felt that just being here today. As you've mentioned before in the past, your playing style, you like to focus on the use of space, be that both defensively and attacking. Do you think you might have to adapt your style as you become a tougher place for visiting sides to come to?
I think we've already adapted. Last season, I mean, the first season actually? Millwall came, and to be fair to Ollie, like they blocked it up. We were a counter-attacking side at the time. They didn't play many short passes that we could counter. They played a lot of diagonal balls that were really, really deep, and we found it a real challenge to get our game going. And there was games like that, and even last season we struggled occasionally against the teams who, you know, often we'd play against the teams who quite easy to set a game plan. It was the team we're going to sit in, block the space, and we found that difficult. This year we've changed the way we play so that we feel better equipped. If teams drop in, we can still hurt them. You know, if we need to have more of the ball, if we need to counter-attack, we can still counter-attack. So I think I've always felt as though a philosophy is great, but it's the people that are rigid with that sometimes go to other clubs and it doesn't quite work. I think you have to keep changing and moving that philosophy, as long as it's built around the same core principles. But you have to adjust all the time, I feel.
I think the skill that Gaz has got, to be honest, and not just because he's sat here, is the players understand what he wants them to do, and then they feel confident in doing that. Yeah. I think your success last year has allowed you to build on that. you know, and that's what's unusual is a manager being, you know, as many games as you've got at Birmingham now. That's great because hopefully you'll have the ability to, and the potential with the new owners coming in to actually expand and develop this club even more in the way that you're going to play. You know,
you don't get that trust, do you? Now you don't get. You have to build trust, don't you, in players, like you say. And sometimes that trust comes from winning games and then realising that what we're doing is right. And like you say, often nowadays you don't get that time to build the trust, do you? So it is quite unique. I mean, we've had it twice now where it's quite unique that we've got through that kind of first 6 months where people, it's almost do or die, you know. So and then at least we've allowed a bit of time to impart that philosophy and culture as well. I think.
What I meant was if you got Clay, Clay Donaldson up front, runs both channels. It's unbelievable how he does it. He's 32 now, but he still does it. Yeah. If he's injured, it really hit you last year. Now you got Djukovic, you know. You can play both of them if you want. So for me, you really have sort of moved forward and expanded on that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right.
The Tilton Alliance, another one of the fan sites here, and a few people have asked this question actually. Bit of a sidestep from football, but any developments on your possibilities of a role in Peaky Blinders?
Well, I can't say too much, but Steve's funny because we got invited to the premiere at Birmingham, which is brilliant because obviously Stephen's a big blues fan, and he's a really interesting guy. He's done the matchday sponsor a couple of times as well. Actually gave me a Peaky hat when I first came, and I've joked with him a couple of times. I said, you know, Stephen, come on, surely you can get me in the background somewhere. I don't want to compromise him too much. But, you know, I mean, I think it's a little ticky off the bucket list, like surely. And listen, all I can say is that's a work in progress. But I'm hopeful that at some point, I don't want to give too much away. I don't think I'm going to get a main character, certainly. But it's a great show. It's a brilliant show. We try to. I've said to the club, there's no way, like commercially, that we can try to exploit it because it's brilliant, isn't it? It's such a great thing to link to your club, you know, in terms of making the place not quite as hostile as those gangs back then, but that's brilliant. So, yeah, I've jokingly asked the question, and I'm still waiting.
Watch his space in. Also, on a similar theme, question from Sam Parrish. Obviously today you're in a tracksuit, but generally on the touchline, you're quite well dressed. Have you got any sartorial surprises for the winter? Any looks you're going to be channeling or anything, Gary?
You got one of them Birmingham City Elf jumpers with the bells on. I got one.
You did nick that one. I wonder where they got.
Yeah, I got one. Dogs go mad when I wear it.
Do you know what? They actually said they wondered whether you would actually wear one on the touchline. Well, that was where the commercial side had just got a little bit too carried away, didn't it? A little bit blurred the vision. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've unashamedly named the company in it. You know, I get a lot of my stuff from Reese, and I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for the sponsorship deal. It's costing me a lot of money. It's getting the Championships levels. The clothes seem to be a little bit more expensive. League Two, I could go to Marks and Sparks, mate, and I could go anywhere. I could even go to Primark.
You ain't got to worry about
that. But
I
can't now.
Why not?
Well, because I
don't get big time on us.
Oh no, well, there's still another couple of levels above Reece. No. I think they should be looking now, thinking we need to make sure we are. I don't mind having advertising on my back. I'm quite happy with that. You know, if it gets me some free gear.
Another interesting question. A few people have asked. Talk of Birmingham bidding for the Commonwealth Games and the potential of them building a new stadium and possibly Birmingham City playing there. There's a lot of ifs and buts along that way. Have you got an opinion on that? Is it something that is interesting for the club?
Well, someone mentioned it the other day to me. It was the first time I'd actually heard it. I have to be really honest, and I can see that there's a first part of me from a commercial perspective that a lot of clubs obviously will go down if they get the opportunity. You know, a gleaming brand new stadium on the outskirts of Birmingham, probably around the NEC sort of area, much more accessible for people to get to, and you know, much better from a commercial point of view in terms of the stuff you can have within that to make the club money. But there's a little bit of me, I don't know, I've seen it done a lot in the past, and I like the feel of, I just love the smell and the feel of a ground that's been there for a long time, you know, and I know the game moves on, and I know clubs have to move on, and not always fans support it, some do, some don't. And I'm mixed really on it. You know, I wouldn't want to stand in the way of progression for any club, because I think that, you know, there's vital things within that. But I do think that sometimes, you know, from a team perspective, you can make an older ground with a different type of atmosphere work for you better than a new stadium that's gleaming, nice track round it, you know, a little bit further away from the
You've got two examples, haven't you? Monday night, you look at Anfield where they just developed a new stand.
Yeah.
They haven't lost any of the magic.
Yeah.
Yet they've got this new stand. And I suppose if you spoke to West Ham supporters, at the moment, I think you'd get quite a different opinion from them, wouldn't you, about moving to a new stand?
Well, I've seen it in my town, Bristol, right? Bristol City, they were going to move out. It didn't happen, and now they've redeveloped Ashley Gate, and they're buzzing.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, I wouldn't want Birmingham deep down to lose their personality, which comes from St Andrews, doesn't it, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah,
and we've got the old main stand. In all fairness, you look at the ground as well, you've got the old main stand. That's probably the only bit that hasn't really been developed. So actually, you know, if you were to eventually have the opportunity to make that a new side, you know, the ground would be pretty impressive, I think. And like you say, you retain that, you just retain that character, which I think is getting sort of ground out of football a little bit, isn't it? It's all becoming a little bit too nicey and commercialised, and I think sometimes it's nice to have that little bit of...
Well, West Ham have had a great deal, but ask the supporters, would they change back?
Do you know what I mean? Most of them would, wouldn't they? Certainly the feel you get from West Ham supporters at the moment.
Yeah.
Obviously, you go to Burton on Friday night, a club that's very, very special for you. How's it going to feel going back there, and can you believe that club that you managed are now in the Championship?
No, I can't. I remember we took over. I took over as assistant with Pesh when the club had just got into the Football League. Obviously, Nigel moved on just before that to Derby, and I remember the chairman saying, "Look, if we can," I can remember visibly him saying that, you know, if we can stay in the league for a season, you know, we then get the money that goes around it. We can just start to build a little bit, and that was really the focus. I know that, of course, that sounds a bit obvious, but that was the focus. So to now be looking at that club and probably, I don't know how many years ago they were in the Northern Prem or whatever it was, and probably 5 years or 6 years of being in the league to eventually have, not only to have gone up to League One, which I think Jimmy done an amazing job to take on the bits that we'd got to and get that promotion, and then Nigel to come in and see it through and to be in the Championship was an incredible story. I said this, I went to the Doncaster game when they got promoted into the Championship, and I actually said on telly, I said, like, for me, this story is every bit as big as... I know it wasn't as big as the Leicester story at the time, but in terms of achievement, it was as big as that story, and probably not got as much national coverage because it's the Championship and not the Premier League, but you know, it's fantastic. And I genuinely believe they got a really, really strong chance of being competitive again, you know, and I know that their expectations won't necessarily be to go and win that league necessarily, but... I think they can be really competitive as they've proved so far. So it'll be a real mixed night. I mean, I've been away for 2 years now, so it's not like going back 2 months after you've left. I've been back there for a pre-season game, and I've been back there to watch games. So it won't feel like, you know, I won't have any real nerves or anticipation going back there. But it'll just be a nice evening. But you know, Ollie will tell you it's only a nice evening if you go and win and get a result.
I don't think I've ever beat one of my old teams.
Well, no, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I suppose you can argue, listen, I don't want to lose any game. If I was ever going to lose a game, then I'd say to one of my old teams, I can probably
just about.
I can just about.
But the good thing is, the part of you gave them is still there as part of their history, and it's helped you become who you are today. That's how I look at things, you know. And it was good for both of you. Yep. You and the chairman got on fantastically well, and you know, you've helped them on the road to be where they are today.
Yeah, and I still speak to the chairman now. And if I said I was going back, he'd still, you know, he'd welcome you with open arms. So it's a great place, and he knows he can always call me if he needs anything. And those relationships, like you say, are very, very few and far between now in football, aren't they? So I appreciate it. And the other thing is that people always talk about that we did a lot for Burton, but you know what? Like, Burton gave me an unbelievable opportunity, but it wasn't easy to get. I mean, I went for interviews. If I told you some of the places I went for interviews, you would be not amazed, but you know, the fact that I couldn't get into where I wanted to get to, and ended up assistant there and given the opportunity, and I'll be really thankful for Burton for that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Lovely. A couple of other questions come in. It's an interesting one in light of recent events the last few weeks. Stuart King says, would you ever consider the stress and politics of the England manager's job?
I think, listen, I think it's becoming a more daunting prospect for anybody. You've got to certainly make sure there's no skeletons in the old cupboard if you're going to take it. But I think every British English manager, coach, I think would be lying if it didn't say at some point they thought, wow, what would you do if you got the opportunity? Or you know, I don't think you set out. I think I've always been different in terms of I've never set out saying and plotted a pathway to, you know, maybe that's wrong, but I've never done that. How can I become England manager one day or managing the Premier League? I've always just felt, you know, just keep learning, keep trying to be the best person, dad, manager that I can be, and just enjoy it, enjoy the experience. So I'm trying to sort of get round answering it really, just in case it comes up in about 6 months' time. No, I don't. I think you would always consider it, but I think it's also, you know, it's a very difficult job at the moment to get right. Just to sort of, sorry mate, I mean, one of the things I think, and I strongly believe it, and I could be completely wrong, but I still believe as a nation we're trying to do something we think how everyone wants us to play. I think we you know, we've got this lovely idea now, I think, of being a bit Spanish in the way we play. And I don't know, there's a little bit of me in the back of my mind, I think, you know, if we could find a way that fitted our culture and our characteristics, would we be more effective? You know, Roy Hodgson for me had a spell where we counter-attacked, we were strong, we were tough, we were full of running, and we beat some of the top nations. And sometimes I think we're afraid to use what we're about and what we're good at.
What do you think what would you be what would be that style if you were?
I think I'd try to find something that fit identity. The culture. Yeah, I look at someone like you know, I think we're more German in our mentality than we are Spanish, and I just think you would find something around power, pace, toughness. Of course you need the quality, of course you need to, there's going to be games where you're going to have possession, build possession, be fluent in possession, but for me, you know, it's about trying to create something that suits the way we are, you know, and I know it sounds a little bit archaic and sounds a little bit sort of caveman, like I'm not suggesting we go back to, you know, smashing the ball up to a big man and playing off that, but just something that fits the culture of what we're about.
I feel we have another issue. Part of being a good manager is getting your team relaxed to be able to express themselves. I don't think England are allowed to be relaxed. I don't think we would accept them going out for burger and chips after they lost to Wales. Wales went out for burger and chips after they lost to England.
So you think externally?
I think externally, I think we're completely up ourselves because of what the post is all about. And it's not about, no English people deep down really want to be like the best at everything. We just want to win. And we have a great game, and we should be allowed to enjoy the way we go about things. And you know what? It took a war for us to roll our sleeves up and show the best of us. And we're better when we're all against it. You know, the fact is, guys, the way you openly admitted that you made them relaxed by someone's suit fitting them like it don't fit at all, 6'5" and this, you know, and you took the pressure off your lads. I did it at Blackpool. People think I'm a comedian, I'm a joker. You have to be enjoying what you're doing. And all I see with England, everything is supposed to be the best of the best. I'm sorry, it isn't. Yeah. When we had the best team in the world, right, he didn't have best provisions, you know. How did Bobby Charlton and Jack Charlton learn how to play football? They played on the streets, used a wall. There was bricks all over the floor, but they were out there every day. He didn't have an immaculate pitch and have that wonderful training centre. I mean, it's not about that, is it? We've got to really rethink what we do. And one day, someone like him should be the England manager, in my opinion, right? Because of how he cares and what he knows, and it's our culture. And yes, we have to look about out of past what's in fashion, you know, because football goes in and out of fashion, and we just want to win. You know, Alf Ramsey was brave enough to bomb out all the bullshit of what team and who should be playing the best goal scorer in Jimmy Greaves, and he put unpopular things up front because he felt that's what we needed.
The best team, yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and at the end of the day, will the FA ever swallow whatever it is they take in, other words, we're supposed to be the best, and actually do what's right for the country? For me, they should have a look at themselves and say, I failed, so I will go. Because whatever they've been doing up to now isn't right.
No. I'd love, it'd be interesting to see the next period, wouldn't it? I hope Gareth's really successful. You know, he's had a lot of success with the 21s. I know it's a different type.
I think they've stitched him up, mate. I think they should leave him with the 21s and actually maybe go back to Glenodle or someone like that. Do you know what I mean? The brains that we've had. Why can't we bring them back involved with it?
Yeah, I'd agree with you.
Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm glad I asked that question now.
Yeah,
Good one. That
snorter, isn't it?
Right. Anyway, last couple.
Yeah, well, we are, aren't we?
There you go.
Last couple, but before we wrap this up, another question here from the Tilton Alliance. How would you assess the season so far? Early days, albeit, but how would you assess it?
I'm pleased with the start. I mean, we started very, very well last season. We were in a similar vein, 12, 13, 14 games into the season. But been really pleased how we've started. We found a way to not play so well in some games, but win them. And Ollie will tell you, that's the championship. That's what you've got to do. You've got to win games you don't play well in, or perhaps even don't deserve at times. And it's finding different ways to win games, whether that's a set piece, whether that's a good bit of play, whether that's your substitutions, whatever that is. But I feel we're better prepared this season. So pleased with the start. Again, the way I work is I'm always mindful of what's around the corner. I never want to preempt that with the players and start to stop them feeling confident or in a little bit of a flow. But you're always mindful of what are the problems we're going to face, you know, and can we perhaps preempt them before we get them. And often it's a little bit of complacency when you've started well. It's making sure, you know, the top teams have the hunger every week to do the right things and to run and work hard and to be humble in the way you work. And once or twice we'd perhaps come away from that for a game, and it's trying to avoid that type of thing. But pleased with the start and really pleased with the whole progression of the club and the way we're moving forward.
And the Birmingham City FC fan take say, what's the favourite game you've managed so far? Now imagine if you won the derby in a couple of weeks' time, it would be that. But to date, what's been your favourite game?
What, is overall one or just this season?
Well, as overall as Birmingham City manager. Is it one that you really look back and remember?
It's a belting question.
That's a good question. I still think the first home game against Watford, again, you know, listen, the staff, we're all human. We come in, you hope to do well, you hope to inspire the players to better things, you're confident that your methods can, but you wonder whether it can. You're the second from bottom, you just lost 8-0, you know, it's a daunting. I think people said it was an impossible job when we came in. Just keep reminding people because it makes us look a lot better than we actually are. But second game in, we spoke about it earlier, the Wolves game, we got a point away from home Wolves in front of the cameras. Tough game, 0-0, clean sheet, really pleased. Then the test comes, the real test, because they haven't won at home, or they won one game at home in 26 games. So there's a real nervousness, but there was a feel of confidence about the place and a feel of a new start. And we scored after, wow, what a start. We scored after about 3 minutes. And everyone, you could just sense the excitement. And they equalised, Watford equalised, were going well at the time. I think we scored the winner, Clayton scored a header, and it was in about the 83rd minute or something. The place erupted. And there was a little bit, and I don't mean to sound unambitious here, but there was a little bit of me thought, it's worth it just for this. Honestly, the feel of the atmosphere, and bear in mind, with no disrespect to Burton, we've been playing in front of sort of 3,000 and 3,500 and 4,000, and suddenly to be 20,000 there, erupting, you know, haven't won for a while, and it was almost to get that early home win, gave everyone belief, you know, and I think that moment, probably that game was I would say was still probably my favourite game that we've been in.
Just one more, and then we've got to talk about the derby, haven't we?
Yeah.
Haven't even touched on it. Go on, Ollie.
So
No, I'm just saying, I think if there's anybody out there who epitomises the badge that he's working for, is this fella. Because to do that, to change that atmosphere in the dressing room as quickly and as consistently as you did was as good a bit of management I've seen, mate. That's all I want to say at that time.
Well, do you know what? I think it was interesting because we brought staff were all sat outside. They're probably all peering through, wanting a little bit of kudos. But genuinely, we brought in, you know, the four of us came in together, and we've been tight for a while, so we know how each other works and we support each other. But the staff we actually inherited were brilliant, and you know that I think the culture that they've created, you can't create it on your own, can you? You can't create a culture in a club on your own. You have to have a backing of everyone, and as you know, sometimes you go to clubs, I would imagine, where sometimes people are not pulling in the same way as you want them, and they're a bit nervous about their jobs, and we had a really strong group straight away, and we've been able to, I think that's been a big part of things, stability, and we're coming and we'll have a laugh, and we'll have a bit of a joke and we enjoy working together. As you saw earlier when John the kitman was trying to wash the windows, trying to get involved, I should have shoved him off the ladder, shouldn't I? That would have been funny. That'd have served him right. But no, but I think that's been a big part of the togetherness of the group. And we'll lose games, but we'll come in on the next day and we'll get each other going again, and we'll retain that belief, which I think is important.
Yeah, but there's a trust in that, isn't there? There's a strength in trust, and no matter what was happening, you never made any excuses about not being able to compete. You know, you made people believe about where you believe they could go. You know, you almost changed their own mindset, which is.
Well, I've got. I have a great belief in people. I always try to see the best in people, and sometimes that for me can be a weakness occasionally. But that's how I am, and I think you've got to manage how you are. You know, I'm not going to rip people's heads off every 5 seconds. That's not me. You know, I'm going to try and support them. I'm going to try and see the best in them. And I try to trust people. I said the same to the staff. I said, listen, you know, you're here because you're good at your jobs. Like, go and do your jobs. I said, I'll be on you if you don't do it properly, but I'll trust you to do your jobs. You've got to take ownership of that and make decisions based on what you think is right. And that's how I am. So, listen, I think that helps if someone's supporting you. I just, the way I look at it, I'd want to work in an environment where it was challenging, it was demanding, but it was supportive, and it was together and cohesive, and that's what we try to do. Although saying that, John the kitman I asked him to bring some caramel hobnobs in the other day, and he ate them all. And that's selfish, isn't it? That's not someone who's a team player, though, is it?
Well,
you know
he tried to be a team. I bet there was some crumbs. Did he admit it?
He even ate the crumbs.
Did he admit it?
He did admit it. Yeah,
well, there you are then. At least you're halfway there. We should buy 2 packets now. We probably eat them on the way in as well.
Nobody's watching.
That's it. Gary, thanks ever so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Ollie, thank you.
You forgot the Aston Villa thing as well, by the way, but we'll have to leave another one for that.
I mean, it needs to be honest. We know how big it is. Thanks ever so much for viewing. Sorry for all the people that asked questions that we couldn't answer, but thank you, and catch up with you all soon.